Marcus Rashford collapsed during halftime of England's World Cup opener against Ghana. And what happened in that tunnel moment is only now coming into focus. It wasn't just a physical problem. It wasn't dehydration. It wasn't something the medical team could spin away with a quick statement. This is serious. Nothing like this has ever surfaced during a World Cup match. Not at this level. Not with a player of Rashford's stature. And there's a detail the FA is still desperately trying to keep under wraps about what the backroom staff saw in those first chaotic minutes. And the worst part? According to sources close to the England camp, what actually triggered the incident is far worse than the physical collapse itself. Over the next few minutes, you're going to understand exactly what happened in that dressing room, why Thomas Tuchel made the calls he did, and why this moment changes everything for England's tournament hopes. You didn't see it on the broadcast. 11 minutes into the first half against Ghana, Marcus Rashford was already struggling. He'd lost possession twice in dangerous areas. His movement looked sluggish, and you could see the frustration building in his face with every misplaced pass. The crowd could feel it. The coaching staff could feel it. By the time the players walked toward the tunnel at halftime, Rashford was carrying the weight of needing to silence every doubt that had followed him into this tournament. But that's when it all started to unravel. Sources close to the squad describe what happened next in brutal detail. As the players filed down the corridor, one of Tuchel's assistant coaches pulled Rashford aside for what was supposed to be a tactical correction. But according to insiders, the tone escalated quickly. The assistant wasn't just pointing out positioning errors. He was questioning Rashford's mental approach, his hunger, whether he had the resilience for this stage. Rashford's body language hardened visibly. Other players noticed. The conversation lasted maybe 2 minutes, but it was enough to shift something fundamental in the atmosphere. 10 minutes later, a member of the backroom staff went looking for Rashford in the bathroom area adjacent to the dressing room. What they found stopped them cold. Rashford was visibly unwell, physically distressed in a way that went beyond normal match fatigue. A physio was called immediately. Jordan Pickford, England's captain, arrived moments after, and his expression shifted from concern to something closer to alarm as he took in the scene. According to one person with direct knowledge of what happened, the silence in that moment stretched long enough for at least 2 other players to realize something serious had occurred. That quiet told them the tournament had just changed. But to understand why this moment hit so hard, you need to know what had been building behind the scenes for weeks. The thing is, this didn't start during the match against Ghana. Marcus Rashford's form had deteriorated sharply in the build-up to the World Cup. A muscle injury in March had sidelined him at club level, and his return to Manchester United had been rushed. Internally, there was real friction over whether he should even start the opener. Thomas Tuchel had backed him publicly, told the press Rashford was fit, ready, essential to England's attacking plans. But privately, according to what's being said behind the scenes, Tuchel was questioning the decision himself. And the pressure around Rashford was suffocating. His last 3 England appearances had yielded no goals. The media had been relentless about his consistency, about whether he still had the edge. Harry Kane, who's led England's attack for over a decade, was watching from the bench. A presence that carried its own weight. Anthony Gordon, the emerging winger who'd broken into the squad only in the past 18 months, was pushing hard for minutes. Internally, there were whispers that if Rashford couldn't deliver against Ghana, Tuchel might pivot to fresher options. By the time the match kicked off, Rashford was already carrying unbearable pressure. The tension didn't stop there. Leaked WhatsApp messages, never officially confirmed, but circulating among staff, suggested friction between Rashford and one of Tuchel's coaching staff over tactical role and positioning. Was Rashford being set up to fail? Was the system wrong for him? These questions were alive in the camp, and both sides had defenders. On one side, younger players and some staff rallied around Rashford's talent and status. They believed he was being undermined, that poor tactical setup and unnecessary pressure from the backroom was crushing him. On the other side, Tuchel's veterans like Kane and Pickford privately felt that elite players absorb criticism, that reactions like what happened at halftime exposed a fragility that couldn't be hidden or excused at a World Cup stage. When the incident became known, and it spread through the squad in minutes, the dressing room fractured along those exact lines. Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, and other core midfielders rallied around Rashford, fearing the incident would be weaponized against him by media and critics. Older heads like Kane held back, concerned but measured. The coaching staff divided too. Some believed Rashford needed immediate tactical support and space to recover. Others felt the message had to be about mental toughness and moving forward without fuss. Within hours, the FA's medical and psychological teams launched a private review. Thomas Tuchel was forced to make an immediate decision about the second half. Anthony Gordon was brought on at the interval, an unplanned substitution that completely disrupted England's attacking shape and forced a tactical reshuffle that Tuchel hadn't prepared for. On social media, the polarization was instant and brutal. Some defended Rashford as a victim of toxic pressure within Tuchel's setup, pointing to the intensity of his 5-year England career and the impossible standards placed on him. Others questioned his mental resilience for World Cup football itself, arguing that elite athletes must absorb pressure without breaking down. Now, Thomas Tuchel is caught between two impossible decisions. If he benches Rashford for the next group stage match, he risks signaling that he abandoned a star player at a critical moment. It could fracture the dressing room further and confirm outside narratives about his man management. But if he starts him again without addressing what happened, he normalizes a breakdown in composure and invites deeper questions about whether his support systems are actually fit for tournament football. The clock is ticking. England's next fixture is days away. The medical department is still assessing Rashford's status. And every hour that passes without clarity is another hour the uncertainty poisons the camp. What happened during that halftime break between Rashford and Tuchel's staff is the hinge point. According to sources, audio from the tactical exchange actually exists, recorded on a staff member's body camera or possibly a player's phone. If that audio surfaces, it could either completely vindicate Rashford if the coaching was harsh and crossing lines, or it could complicate his narrative further if he simply couldn't handle standard pressure. That detail hasn't come out yet, but it's sitting in someone's pocket. And when it emerges, it could turn this entire story upside down. England needed a statement performance against Ghana. Instead, they got a crisis that exposed fractures in Tuchel's leadership and questions about whether the squad's mental resilience is genuinely ready for knockout football. The weight of that moment in the tunnel, when a captain realized his teammate wasn't just tired, but broken, that's a moment that doesn't come back from easily. And look, this is far from over. This is the information circulating right now, But over the next few hours and days, new details should leak out, and they could completely reshape how we understand what happened. Over to you. Is Marcus Rashford a victim of a toxic culture within Tuchel's England setup? Or is his breakdown a sign he's not mentally ready for World Cup football at this level? Write it down below. And if you don't want to find out about the next bombshell after everyone else does, subscribe and turn on notifications right now. Because when this fully blows up, you're going to want to be the first to know, not the last. The reality is that Marcus Rashford's status for England's next group stage fixture remains completely uncertain. According to what's being said behind the scenes, the medical department is still conducting assessments, but the psychological element of what happened in that tunnel is far harder to measure than any physical injury. Tuchel has given no public indication of his plans, which only fuels the speculation grinding through the squad and the fan base in real time. What makes this even more volatile is that Anthony Gordon, who came on at halftime against Ghana, delivered an immediate impact that some are already calling a statement. The young winger's directness and energy created space that Rashford hadn't been able to generate. Now there's a narrative building, not loudly, but unmistakably, that maybe Gordon should keep the shirt. Jude Bellingham, one of the midfield anchors who defended Rashford in the dressing room immediately after, is now watching how Tuchel handles the next selection. If Rashford gets dropped, does that validate the coaching staff's harsh halftime approach? Or does it prove their methods broke a player who needed support instead of criticism? Harry Kane has been notably quiet since the incident. Kane, who's captained England through more pressure than almost anyone else in the squad, understands what it means to carry expectation. But he's also a realist about standards. Sources close to Kane suggest he's watching Tuchel closely, waiting to see whether this becomes a pattern or a one-off crisis. If Tuchel can't stabilize the situation, Kane's measured silence could shift into something far more consequential. A senior voice questioning the manager's judgment in a way that ripples through the entire camp. The FA's silence is deliberate but deafening. No official statement, no confirmation of what actually happened. That vacuum is being filled by rumors, leaks, and fragments of truth that contradict each other. One account says Rashford had a reaction to something in his pre-match meal. Another claims it was purely psychological and tactical. A third suggests underlying tension with Tuchel that had been simmering for weeks. Each version finds believers, and each version splits opinion further. What we know for certain is this: Declan Rice, Elliot Anderson, and the core of England's midfield are now operating under a cloud of uncertainty about squad cohesion that didn't exist before the Ghana match kicked off. Bukayo Saka and Noni Madueke are watching how selection plays out. The younger players are asking whether mental resilience is being tested or crushed. The veterans are asking whether standards are being maintained or abandoned. Thomas Tuchel is trapped in the middle, trying to manage a squad that's fracturing along lines of philosophy, generation, and loyalty. The clock is ticking toward England's next fixture. Tuchel has maybe 72 hours to make a decision about Rashford, and whatever he chooses becomes the defining statement about his leadership and his understanding of what England's squad actually needs right now. The tournament is still young, but this moment, this halftime collapse and its aftermath, is already shaping everything that comes next. England came to win the World Cup. Instead, they're spending their first days managing internal crisis and questions about whether this group can actually hold together under pressure. That's the weight Marcus Rashford's breakdown has placed on Thomas Tuchel's shoulders. And that's a burden that doesn't lift easily in a tournament where margins are measured in millimeters and moments.